My name is Elijah, and I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone knows each other's business, or so I thought. It was a chilly Tuesday evening when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. The name on the screen made me pause. Margaret, my elderly neighbor from 2 houses down. Margaret wasn't one to call without a reason, so I immediately picked up. Elijah, dear, could you come by my house? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. It's about Amelia. Amelia is my wife, and hearing her name mentioned in such a serious tone made my stomach drop. Margaret didn't elaborate, only adding, "You'll understand when you get here." I didn't ask questions. Something in her voice told me this wasn't the kind of situation where explanations over the phone would suffice. Grabbing my coat, I stepped outside and noticed how eerily quiet the street seemed. The crisp autumn air bit at my face as I drove the short distance to Margaret's house. The closer I got, the more I felt a sense of unease creeping up on me. When I arrived, Margaret was waiting at the door, her frail figure silhouetted against the warm glow of her porch light. She ushered me inside without a word, shutting the door behind me as if to seal away whatever was happening from the outside world. "Elijah, sit down," she said, motioning to a chair in her cozy living room. Her hands trembled as she poured tea from a pot that looked older than I was. I didn't want tea. I wanted answers. "What's going on, Margaret? Is Amelia okay?" I asked, my voice breaking slightly. Margaret sat down across from me and took a deep breath. "I've seen things, Elijah. Things I didn't want to see. Things that made me question whether I should stay silent or speak up." Her words hit me like a brick wall. My mind raced, trying to piece together what she could possibly mean. Margaret was the kind of neighbor who noticed everything, but she was also fiercely private. If she was saying this, it had to be serious. She slid a small envelope across the coffee table. "You'll want to see this." My hand shook as I picked it up and pulled out a stack of photographs. The first one was blurry, but the next was clear as day. It showed Amelia standing in front of a car I didn't recognize, talking to a man I'd never seen before. The timestamps in the corner told me the photos were taken just last night. "I didn't mean to spy," Margaret said softly, "but they were right outside my window. I couldn't ignore it." My mind reeled as I flipped through the photos. The man looked older, maybe in his 50s, with graying hair and an expensive-looking suit. Amelia, my wife of 6 years, looked different. She was smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years, leaning in close to him as if they were sharing a private joke. "Margaret, are you sure this is what it looks like?" I asked, though my voice lacked conviction. "I wish I wasn't," she replied, her eyes glistening with tears. "But there's more." She reached for her phone and played a video. The footage was grainy, but it clearly showed Amelia getting into the man's car. They drove off, disappearing into the night. I sat there, frozen, as 1,000 thoughts collided in my head. Was this just a misunderstanding? A business meeting? A long-lost friend? Or was it something darker? Margaret touched my hand gently. "I don't know what's going on, but I thought you deserved to know." I thanked her, though the words felt hollow. As I walked back to my car, the world felt different, colder, darker. I clutched the envelope tightly, knowing it held answers I didn't want but needed to face. When I got home, Amelia was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she chopped vegetables for dinner. She looked up and smiled at me like everything was perfectly normal. "Hey, you're back early. How was your day?" she asked, her tone light and cheerful. For a moment, I considered confronting her right then and there, but something stopped me. I needed more. I needed the whole picture before I said anything. So I smiled back, hiding the storm brewing inside me. "It was fine," I said, my voice steady as I sat down at the dinner table. The envelope burned in my pocket like a hidden secret, one that would soon shatter the life I thought I knew. Dinner that night was surreal. Amelia chatted about her day at work, laughing softly as she recounted an office joke. Her face was the picture of contentment, her words flowing effortlessly. But as I sat across from her, my mind was elsewhere, spinning around the photos and video Margaret had shown me. Every smile she gave me felt like a mockery, every word like a lie. "Everything okay, Elijah? You've barely touched your food," Amelia asked, her voice tinged with concern. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just a long day at work. Nothing to worry about." She nodded, seemingly satisfied with my response, and went back to her meal. But inside, I was boiling. Who was the man in the photos? Why had she lied to me about last night, saying she'd stayed late at the office? And why did she seem so unbothered, like nothing was wrong? That night, After Amelia went to bed, I locked myself in my home office and pulled out the envelope. I laid the photos on the desk, staring at each one in detail, hoping to find some clue, some sign that this was all a misunderstanding. But the more I looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't innocent. The way she leaned into the man, the laughter frozen in the snapshots, the ease with which she got into his car, it all screamed betrayal. Unable to sleep, I decided to take action. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I pulled out my laptop and started digging. First, I searched for the man in the photos. His face looked vaguely familiar, like I'd seen him before, but couldn't quite place him. I scoured social media, searching for any connection to Amelia, but came up empty. Frustrated, I switched tactics and looked at Amelia's phone records instead. We share a family plan, and accessing her call log wasn't difficult. Sure enough, there were several calls to an unknown number, all within the past month. The number didn't match anyone in her contacts, and a quick reverse lookup revealed it was a private line. My stomach churned. This wasn't just some casual acquaintance. The next day, I decided to follow her. It felt wrong, like I was betraying her trust, but after what I'd seen, I couldn't sit idly by. Amelia left for work at her usual time, dressed in her business casual attire, and kissed me on the cheek as she headed out the door. "Have a good day, babe," she said, her smile warm and genuine. I waited 10 minutes before grabbing my keys and following her. Her office was downtown, and the route was straightforward, but halfway there, she turned off into a neighborhood I didn't recognize. I kept my distance, heart pounding, as I watched her pull into the driveway of a modest brick house. She parked, got out, and knocked on the door. A moment later, the man from the photos opened it, and she walked inside without hesitation. I sat there in my car, parked a few houses down, watching as the door closed behind her. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. What was I supposed to do now? Confront her? Burst in and demand an explanation? Or wait and see what else I could learn? After what felt like an eternity, I decided to wait. If I confronted her now, she'd just deny everything. I needed undeniable proof. So I took out my phone and started recording, capturing the house, the car in the driveway, and the timestamp on my phone. Then I waited, my pulse racing with every passing minute. An hour later, the door opened, and Amelia stepped out, laughing as she adjusted her coat. The man followed her to the car, his hand resting casually on her back. They spoke for a moment before she got into her car and drove off. I stayed hidden, letting her leave before turning my attention back to the man. He didn't seem in any rush to go back inside, instead lingering on the porch, checking his phone. I snapped a few photos of him and his license plate before heading home. My head was spinning, my thoughts a chaotic mess. What had I just witnessed? Who was this man to her, and why had she lied to me? When Amelia came home that evening, she acted as if nothing had happened. She greeted me with a kiss, asked about my day, and even suggested we watch a movie together. I played along, all the while feeling like I was living in some bizarre alternate reality. As she sat next to me on the couch, laughing at the movie, I couldn't help but wonder how many lies she told me, how many secrets she was hiding. The weight of the photos and video in my pocket felt heavier than ever. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself much longer. The truth was out there, just waiting to shatter the fragile illusion of our life together. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet, not until I had all the pieces. The following morning, I woke up with a plan. The photos, the video, the phone records, they were all pieces of a puzzle, but I needed the bigger picture. My gut told me that whatever Amelia was hiding went deeper than a few secret visits to a stranger's house. If I wanted the truth, I had to play it smart. Amelia left for work like usual, her smile as radiant as ever. "Have a good day, honey," she called out as she walked out the door. I nodded and waved, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. As soon as her car disappeared down the street, I grabbed my laptop and phone. The first step was to figure out who this man was. I took the photos of him, along with the images of his license plate, and ran a search online. After some digging, I hit gold, a match on a local business website. His name was Gregory Tanner, and he was the owner of a small but successful real estate firm downtown. His profile picture confirmed it was him, the same man from the photos. He looked respectable, polished, even, with a confident smile that now felt smug to me. But what connection did he have to Amelia? That was the missing link. I scoured Gregory's social media, his business page, even local news articles, searching for anything that might tie him to my wife. That's when I found it, a tagged photo from 2 months ago. It was a company event, some kind of charity gala. Amelia was in the background, standing at a table with a group of people, including Gregory. So, they'd met at the gala, that much was clear. But was that when this started, or did it go back even further? I stared at the screen, my mind racing with possibilities. I saved the photo for my records and kept digging. Next, I decided to track down the number she'd been calling. I couldn't trace it directly to Gregory, but it was suspicious enough that I needed to know more. I reached out to a friend of mine, Ethan, who worked in IT and owed me a favor. I explained that I was trying to confirm a number, keeping the details vague. Ethan promised to get back to me by the end of the day. While I waited, I decided to take another drive past Gregory's house. I told myself it was just to see if there was anything I'd missed, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. I needed to feel like I was doing something, anything, to unravel the truth. When I arrived, the house looked just as it had the day before. Quiet, unassuming, like any other home on the block. But as I parked a few houses down and watched, something caught my eye. A delivery truck pulled up, and a man stepped out carrying a large bouquet of flowers. He rang the doorbell, and moments later, Gregory appeared. He signed for the flowers, glanced at the card attached, and smiled before taking them inside. Flowers for Amelia, or someone else? My mind spun with questions. I snapped a photo of the delivery truck and its logo, just in case it became useful later. Back home, Ethan called me. "Hey Elijah, that number you asked about? It's a burner phone. No registered owner. But here's the thing. It's been pinging off the same tower near your neighborhood for weeks. Whoever is using it is close by." That was the final piece I needed. Gregory was using a burner phone to communicate with my wife. It wasn't just some casual connection. They were deliberately hiding their conversations. The evidence was piling up, and it was damning. That evening, as Amelia came home and started preparing dinner, I sat at the kitchen table watching her every move. She was humming softly, completely at ease, while I was a storm of emotions inside. I had the proof I needed, but confronting her felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Once I said the words, there'd be no going back. "Amelia," I began, my voice steady but firm. She turned, a spatula in hand, her expression curious. "What's up?" I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. I couldn't do it. Not yet. Instead, I forced a smile and shook my head. "Nothing. Just wanted to say thanks for dinner." She smiled back, seemingly satisfied, and turned her attention back to the stove. But my mind was already racing ahead, planning my next move. I needed one more thing. Something irrefutable. Something that would make her confess. Tomorrow, I decided, would be the day. The next morning, the tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife. Amelia carried on as usual, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath my composed facade. She kissed me on the cheek before heading to work, her cheerful goodbye echoing in the hallway as the door closed behind her. I waited until her car disappeared from sight before grabbing my keys and heading out. This time, I wasn't going to sit idly by. I had a plan, and it started with visiting Gregory Tanner's office. Gregory's real estate firm was located in a sleek, modern building downtown, the kind of place that screamed success and sophistication. I parked a block away and walked in, pretending to be a potential client. The receptionist greeted me with a warm smile. "Hi there. How can I help you today?" she asked. "I'm looking to buy a property in the area," I said, forcing a polite smile. "Is Mr. Tanner available to discuss options?" Her smile faltered slightly. "Mr. Tanner is in a meeting right now, but I'd be happy to schedule an appointment for you." I nodded, pretending to consider the offer. "Actually, I'll just take a brochure for now, thanks." As she handed me a glossy brochure, I subtly glanced at the framed photos on the wall behind her desk. One caught my eye, a group shot from the charity gala. Gregory stood front and center, his arm draped casually over Amelia's shoulder. She was smiling, holding a glass of wine, looking completely at ease. That was enough for now. I thanked the receptionist and left, my heart pounding. The pieces were starting to come together, and the picture they painted wasn't pretty. Back home, I decided it was time to gather hard evidence. I called Ethan again, explaining the situation in more detail this time. He didn't judge, but I could hear the concern in his voice. "Elijah, are you sure you want to go down this road? Once you start, there's no turning back." "I have to," I said firmly. "I can't live with this uncertainty anymore." Ethan agreed to help me set up a GPS tracker on Amelia's car. That evening, while she was in the shower, I slipped outside and placed the device under her bumper. It was discreet and untraceable, and it would give me the answers I needed. The next day, I tracked her movements from my phone as she went about her usual routine. Everything seemed normal: her office, a coffee shop, the grocery store. But then, just after lunch, the tracker showed her heading toward Gregory's neighborhood. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I grabbed my jacket and followed her. By the time I arrived, her car was parked in Gregory's driveway. I stayed back, watching as the minutes turned into hours. When she finally left, I waited until the coast was clear before approaching the house. It was a bold move, but I was desperate. I rang the doorbell, and after a moment, Gregory opened the door. His expression was one of polite confusion, but I could see the flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Can I help you?" he asked. I took a deep breath. "I'm Elijah, Amelia's husband." His face paled, and for a moment, I thought he might slam the door in my face. Instead, he stepped aside, gesturing for me to come in. The house was impeccably clean, decorated with expensive furniture and tasteful artwork. It felt more like a show home than a place someone actually lived. "I assume you're here for answers," Gregory said, his tone measured. I nodded. "I've seen the photos, the videos. I know she's been in here. I just want to know the truth." Gregory sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Look, Elijah, this isn't what you think." I narrowed my eyes. "Then what is it?" "Because it looks like my wife is sneaking around behind my back." For a moment, he said nothing. Then, to my surprise, he walked over to a cabinet, pulled out a folder, and handed it to me. Inside were documents, financial reports, emails, and meeting notes. They were all from a company I didn't recognize, but Amelia's name was on nearly every page. "What is this?" I asked, flipping through the papers. Gregory leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Your wife's been helping me with a project. It's sensitive. She didn't want to tell you because she thought you'd worry." His explanation sounded rehearsed, but the documents seemed legitimate. Still, something about the situation didn't sit right with me. "Why the secrecy?" I asked. "Why the burner phone, the late nights?" Gregory hesitated. "Amelia insisted. She said it was better this way." I didn't buy it, but I couldn't exactly accuse him without more proof. I left the house feeling more confused than ever, the folder tucked under my arm like a ticking time bomb. That night, as Amelia and I sat down for dinner, I couldn't keep the questions from bubbling to the surface. "How was work today?" I asked casually, watching her closely. She smiled, completely at ease. "Busy as always. We've got a big project coming up, so it's been nonstop." I nodded, playing along. "Anything interesting happen?" She shrugged. "Not really, same old stuff." Her lies cut deeper than I expected. I didn't confront her, not yet, but the weight of what I knew was becoming unbearable. The truth was out there, just within reach, but I couldn't shake the feeling that when I finally uncovered it, my entire world would come crashing down. The days that followed were a blur of tension and half-truths. Every word Amelia spoke felt like a potential lie, every smile like a mask. I kept my suspicions to myself, biding my time as the pieces of the puzzle slowly fell into place. But the weight of it all was becoming harder to bear. The GPS tracker continued to provide valuable information. Most of Amelia's movements seemed routine: work, errands, the occasional lunch outing. But every couple of days, her car would end up in Gregory Tanner's driveway. The pattern was consistent, and it was maddening. She'd stay for an hour, sometimes two, before leaving as if nothing had happened. I started documenting everything: photos of her car in his driveway, timestamps from the tracker, even notes on her demeanor when she returned home. It wasn't enough to confront her, but it was building into a case I couldn't ignore. One evening, while Amelia was out running errands, I decided to go through the folder Gregory had given me. The documents were detailed, filled with financial projections and project outlines. It all looked legitimate on the surface, but something felt off. Why would a real estate agent need Amelia's help for something like this? She worked in marketing, not finance. And then I noticed it. An email at the bottom of the pile, half crumpled and overlooked. It wasn't from Gregory or Amelia, but from someone named Catherine P. The tone of the email was casual, almost friendly, but the content made my blood run cold. "Greg, I hope Amelia's keeping up her end of the deal. We can't afford any mistakes at this stage. Let me know if she needs a reminder about what's at stake." What deal? What mistakes? And why did Amelia need reminding? My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. That night, I decided to push her for answers. As we sat down for dinner, I casually brought up her work. You've been pretty busy lately, I said, keeping my tone light. What's this big project you've been working on? She hesitated, just for a second, but long enough for me to notice. Oh, just a marketing campaign for a new client. Nothing exciting. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. You've been spending a lot of time at Gregory Tanner's office. Is he the client? Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. For a moment, I thought she might choke, but she quickly recovered, forcing a laugh. How do you know Greg? I looked him up, I said, keeping my voice calm. Seemed like the smart thing to do, considering how much time you're spending with him. Her smile faltered, and I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes. Elijah, it's nothing. Greg's a colleague, that's all. We're just collaborating on a project. A project so sensitive you can't even tell me about it. I asked, my tone sharper now. She set her fork down and sighed. Look, I didn't want to worry you. Greg's been going through a tough time, and I've been helping him out. It's not a big deal. But it was a big deal. I could see it in the way her hands trembled slightly, in the way she avoided meeting my gaze. The next day, I decided to take a more direct approach. I called Gregory's office, pretending to be someone else, and asked to speak to him. The receptionist transferred me to his line, and when he picked up, I recognized his voice immediately. Gregory Tanner speaking, he said. Gregory, this is Elijah, I said, my tone firm. We need to talk. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Elijah, this isn't the time. It's never the time, is it? I shot back. But you've been meeting with my wife, sneaking around behind my back, and lying to me. I deserve answers. Gregory sighed heavily. Meet me at the coffee shop on Main Street in an hour. We'll talk there. When I arrived at the coffee shop, Gregory was already there, sitting in a corner booth with a cup of coffee in front of him. He looked tense, his usual polished demeanor replaced by a strained expression. Elijah, he said as I slid into the booth across from him. I owe you an explanation. Start talking, I said, my patience wearing thin. He hesitated, rubbing his temples as if the weight of the situation was too much. It's not what you think, he began. Amelia, she's not cheating on you. At least not in the way you're imagining. What's that supposed to mean? I snapped. She's been helping me with a personal matter, he said, his voice low. Something involving my business. It's complicated. I didn't buy it. Then why all the secrecy? Why the burner phone, the late-night meetings, the lies? Gregory leaned forward, his expression pleading. Elijah, I can't give you all the details, but I swear it's not what it looks like. I stared at him, my mind racing. His words didn't add up, and his evasiveness only made me more suspicious. But before I could press him further, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Ethan. I dug deeper into that burner phone. The message read, It's not just Gregory using it. There's another number linked to it, someone named Catherine P. You need to find out who she is. Catherine P. The name from the email. The missing piece of the puzzle. I stood up, glaring at Gregory. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. As I left the coffee shop, one thing was clear. Whatever was going on, it was bigger than I'd imagined, and I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As I walked out of the coffee shop, Gregory's evasiveness lingered in my mind like a bad aftertaste. He was clearly hiding something, and the mention of Catherine P. felt like the key to unlocking the whole mess. My instincts screamed that I was getting close to the truth, but I wasn't prepared for how deep the rabbit hole would go. I sat in my car, staring at the text from Ethan. My hands hovered over my phone, debating my next move. If Gregory wouldn't give me answers, maybe Catherine P. would. But who was she, and how did she fit into all of this? I called Ethan back. Hey, I need more on Catherine P. Can you dig up anything? A last name, an address, anything that connects her to Gregory or Amelia? Already on it, Ethan replied. But I'll warn you, man, this might take some time. People using burner phones are usually trying to cover something big. Thanks, Ethan. Just keep me posted. Back home, I decided to confront Amelia in a subtler way. I couldn't come at her head-on without more proof, but I could test her reactions. That evening, as we sat down for dinner, I brought up Gregory's name. Do you remember that charity gala you went to a couple of months ago? I asked, feigning casual curiosity. Amelia looked up from her plate, her expression neutral. Yeah, why? Gregory Tanner was there, wasn't he? She nodded slowly. Yeah, He was one of the sponsors. Why are you asking about him? I shrugged. I came across his name today and remembered you mentioned him. Seemed like a big deal at the gala. Her eyes flickered with something. Nervousness, maybe, but she quickly composed herself. He's just a client, Elijah. Nothing more. Her response felt rehearsed, and I knew she was holding something back. I decided to let it slide for now, but the walls were closing in around her. The next morning, Ethan called with an update. I found something on Catherine P. Her full name is Catherine Palmer. She's listed as a business consultant, but there's barely any online presence. No LinkedIn, no social media, nothing. It's like she's trying to stay under the radar. That's suspicious, I muttered. Anything else? Yeah, Ethan said. She's been listed as a co-signer on a few of Gregory's recent business deals. Looks like they've been working together for years. That was the connection I needed. Catherine wasn't just some random name. She was tied to Gregory's business. But what did that have to do with Amelia? Ethan, can you find out if Catherine has any connection to Amelia? I'll see what I can do. But Elijah, you need to be careful. If this is as big as it seems, you might be walking into something dangerous. I thanked him and hung up, my mind racing. The pieces were starting to fit together, but there were still too many unanswered questions. Later that day, I decided to follow Amelia again. The tracker showed her heading to Gregory's house once more, and I parked a safe distance away, watching as she went inside. This time, she stayed longer, almost 3 hours. When she finally left, I waited for Gregory to leave as well. Sure enough, about 15 minutes later, he walked out looking tense. He got into his car and drove off, and I followed him. His destination surprised me. It wasn't his office or another house. It was a quiet park on the edge of town. He parked his car and walked to a secluded bench where a woman was waiting for him. She was tall, with sharp features and an air of authority. Even from a distance, I could tell she wasn't the kind of person you'd want to cross. Gregory sat down beside her, and they started talking, their body language intense. I pulled out my phone and started recording, zooming in as much as I could. Was this Catherine Palmer? It had to be. Their conversation was too far away for me to hear, but their expressions said enough. Gregory looked nervous, glancing around like he expected someone to be watching. Catherine, on the other hand, looked calm and in control, gesturing firmly as she spoke. After about 20 minutes, they stood up and went their separate ways. I followed Catherine this time, keeping a safe distance as she drove to a small office building in a less busy part of town. Once she was inside, I parked nearby and waited. After about an hour, I decided to take a chance. I walked into the building, pretending I was looking for someone. The receptionist barely glanced at me as I scanned the directory on the wall. Sure enough, Catherine Palmer's name was listed, along with her office number. I didn't approach her then. I wasn't ready for that confrontation. But now I knew where to find her. That night, Amelia seemed distracted. She picked at her dinner, her usual cheer replaced by a quiet tension. Long day? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. Yeah, she said quickly. Just a lot going on at work. She avoided my gaze, and I could feel the distance growing between us. I wanted to ask her about Gregory, about Catherine, about everything I suspected, but I knew she wouldn't tell me the truth. Not yet. As I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized I was closer than ever to uncovering the truth, but I also knew that once I did, there would be no going back. The next morning, I woke up with a single goal in mind, confronting Catherine Palmer. I had tracked Amelia, questioned Gregory, and pieced together fragments of a story that still didn't make sense. But Catherine was the missing link, the one person who could tell me what was really going on. After Amelia left for work, I drove straight to Catherine's office. My heart was pounding as I walked into the building and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Her nameplate was on the door, simple and unassuming. Catherine Palmer, consultant. I knocked twice, my palms sweaty as I waited. The door opened, and there she was, the woman I'd seen at the park. Up close, she was even more intimidating, her sharp features softened only slightly by a light but guarded smile. Can I help you? She asked, her tone professional but clipped. I'm Elijah, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Amelia's husband. Her eyes flickered with recognition, but she quickly masked it. I see. And what brings you here? I think you know, I said, stepping into her office uninvited. I know about Gregory. I know about the burner phone. I know about the meetings. I'm done playing games, Catherine. I want the truth. She closed the door behind me, and gestured toward a chair. Sit. I didn't move. I'm not here to play nice. Just tell me what's going on. Catherine sighed, crossing her arms as she leaned against her desk. Fine. You want the truth? Here it is. Amelia has been helping us with a very sensitive business matter. Gregory made some bad investments, and your wife has been working with me to clean up the mess before it becomes public. I stared at her, trying to process her words. What kind of mess? Fraud, she said bluntly. Gregory's real estate firm is on the verge of collapse. If the truth gets out, it'll ruin his reputation and bankrupt the company. Amelia's been helping us rebrand, reorganize, and quietly bury the worst of it. Her tone was matter of fact, but something about her explanation didn't sit right. And why the secrecy? Why couldn't Amelia just tell me? Catherine's gaze hardened. Because this isn't something you want to be involved in, Elijah. The less you know, the better. I shook my head, anger bubbling to the surface. That's not your call to make. Amelia is my wife. If she's involved in something this serious, I deserve to know. Catherine stepped closer, her voice dropping to a warning tone. You may think you want answers, but trust me, Elijah, some truths are better left buried. I left her office more confused than ever. Rebranding? None of it felt right. Catherine had given me just enough information to keep me at bay, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. That evening, I decided to confront Amelia directly. She came home smiling as always, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. Amelia, I said as she set her bag down, we need to talk. She froze for a moment before turning to face me. About what? About Gregory. About Catherine. About whatever it is you've been hiding from me. Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I snapped, my voice louder than I intended. I've been tracking you. I know you've been going to Gregory's house. I've spoken to Catherine. I've seen the photos, the emails. Just tell me the truth, Amelia. For a moment, I thought she might deny everything, but then her shoulders slumped, and she let out a shaky breath. I didn't want you to find out this way, she said softly. Find out what? I demanded. She sat down at the kitchen table, her hands trembling as she tried to compose herself. Gregory made a mistake, a big one. He got involved in a deal that went bad, and Catherine asked me to help fix it. I didn't want to drag you into it, Elijah. I thought I could handle it on my own. And the burner phone? The secret meetings? The lies? Her voice broke as she answered. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared, okay? Scared you'd think I was betraying you. Scared you'd leave me if you thought I was involved in something illegal. I stared at her, my mind racing. So you weren't? No, she said firmly, meeting my eyes. There's nothing between Gregory and me, I swear. Her words should have brought relief, but they didn't. Something still felt off, like I was only scratching the surface of the truth. Why didn't you just tell me from the start? I asked, my voice softer now. Because I didn't want to lose you, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. Amelia had confessed to part of the truth, but I knew there was more, something Catherine and Gregory were still hiding. The next step was clear. I needed to dig deeper, to find the proof that would either clear Amelia's name or expose the full extent of the lies. Because until I had all the answers, I couldn't move forward. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of determination. Amelia's tears and shaky explanation the night before weren't enough to convince me. There was still too much secrecy, too many loose ends. If I was going to uncover the truth, I had to act decisively, and this time, I wasn't going to rely on anyone else to do it for me. I left the house before Amelia woke up and drove straight to Gregory Tanner's office. My plan was risky, but I was done playing it safe. The receptionist looked up as I entered, her face lighting up with polite confusion. Mr. Tanner isn't expecting you, she said hesitantly. I'm not here for an appointment, I replied, my tone firm but calm. I just need a few minutes of his time. It's urgent. She seemed unsure, but eventually picked up the phone to call Gregory. Moments later, he appeared at the end of the hallway, his face a mixture of surprise and irritation. Elijah, he said, walking toward me. This isn't a good time. It never is it? I replied, but I'm done waiting. We need to talk now. He hesitated, glancing back toward his office before finally gesturing for me to follow him. Once inside, he closed the door and leaned against his desk, arms crossed. What is it you want? He asked, his tone defensive. The truth, I said simply. No more half answers, no more deflections. I want to know what's really going on. Gregory sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I've already told you. Amelia's been helping me with a business matter. That's all there is to it. You and I both know that's a lie, I snapped. I spoke to Catherine Palmer. I know about the burner phone, the secret meetings. If this is just about a bad business deal, why all the cloak and dagger? Gregory's face darkened at the mention of Catherine's name. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. You spoke to Catherine? He asked, his voice low. Yes, I said, stepping closer. And she gave me just enough to know that you're hiding something. So either you come clean, or I take everything I found to the authorities. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, with a heavy sigh, he sat down behind his desk and opened a drawer. He pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk toward me. Everything you want to know is in there, he said, his voice resigned. I opened the folder, my heart pounding as I scanned its contents. What I saw made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a bad business deal, it was a full-blown embezzlement scheme. Gregory had been funneling money out of his own company and laundering it through shell corporations. Amelia's role, according to the documents, had been to create marketing campaigns that disguised the transactions as legitimate business expenses. What the hell is this? I asked, my voice shaking. Gregory looked up at me, his expression grim. It started small. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. But it snowballed, and before I knew it, I was in too deep. Catherine came on board to help clean it up, and she brought Amelia in as a favor to me. A favor? I spat. You dragged my wife into this mess and called it a favor? She agreed to help, Gregory said defensively. She thought she was just doing some freelance work. She didn't know the full scope of what was happening until it was too late. And now, I demanded, does she know everything? Gregory hesitated, then nodded. Yes, she knows. The weight of his words hit me like a punch to the gut. Amelia had known. She'd known about the fraud, the lies, and the danger, and she'd kept it all from me. That evening, I confronted Amelia once and for all. She was in the living room when I walked in, the folder in my hand. Her face paled as soon as she saw it. Elijah, she began, her voice trembling. I can explain. Explain what? I interrupted, throwing the folder onto the coffee table. That you've been helping Gregory embezzle money? That you lied to me over and over again? Tears filled her eyes, but I wasn't moved. I didn't know what I was getting into, she said, her voice breaking. Gregory said it was just a small project, something to help him out. By the time I realized what was really going on, it was too late. You could have come to me, I said, my voice rising. You could have told me the truth instead of sneaking around like a criminal. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't want to drag you into it. I thought I could fix it on my own. And now? I asked, my tone cold. What happens now? Amelia didn't answer. She just stared at me, her tears falling silently. For the first time in our marriage, I didn't see the woman I thought I knew. I saw a stranger. The next day, I took everything, photos, documents, recordings, and handed it over to a lawyer. I wasn't sure where this would lead, but I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. Gregory and Catherine were playing a dangerous game, and Amelia had become their pawn. But I wasn't going to let them ruin my life. As I drove away from the lawyer's office, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The truth had finally come to light, and while it wasn't the truth I wanted, it was the truth I needed. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe.